This is Tim Willis with a voice made for radio and a face made for newsprint, and this is ClickFunnels Click Designs. And tonight we're going to be talking about a subject which is not the most interesting thing, but it's an important thing to be aware of. And we're going to be talking about Creative Commons, what it is, how we can use it, and when we shouldn't use it. But sometimes we're building a website or a sales funnel. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do attribution, and it kind of distracts from the design. It's kind of a tricky area to get into. So I myself generally will avoid any kind of attribution. Now this also applies to sites that have things like icons, like FreePick, if you don't have the pro level. And so I never use FreePick because I use Click Designs to create all my icons. But if you use those sites, you need to be aware of their rules as well. But we're just going to focus on Creative Commons itself tonight. It's a bit of a dry subject, but we'll get through it and it shouldn't take too long. So I'm going to go ahead, switch over to window view, and we'll look at what's going on. All right, so we're here at the Creative Commons website at creativecommons.org. Creative Commons is a licensing system that allows creators to protect their works and distribute them on the internet. Basic short version is that there are 6 licenses. There's 3 that we could make use of, and 3 we want to avoid. But the problem with all licenses, Creative Commons, is they require attribution, which is a pain, and also kind of requires you to put extra kind of links or text on your web page or your funnels to account for that attribution. Creative Commons can be used as any kind of media. It can be used for text, pictures, video, whatever. It even sometimes used for kind of scholarly works like peer-reviewed stuff from colleges and things like that. But let's just take a quick look at the licenses. So if we come here, we can see that we have all these sites here that have agreements with Creative Commons. And the only one that most of us will come in contact with is YouTube. And you will also need to check YouTube's requirements for attribution as well, because that's going to have to be done in the description on your YouTube video. That said, let's look at the license, and so we're going to click here, and there are 6 licenses. They all start with CC, and then there's a BY, all these codes. Now, first thing to understand is that 3 of these have the code NC as part of it. NC stands for non-commercial use. So since almost anything we do as funnel builders, web page designers, or something like that, it's going to ultimately be in the hopes of making money. That's commercial use. So those 3 we can already scratch off the list. Let's take a look at the remaining 3. So the first one, and the least restrictive, it's a CC BY. And this license allows us to copy and redistribute material, remix, transform, build upon the material for any purpose, and it allows that to be done. And it allows that to be done commercially. You do have to attribute. There's our first problem right there. Got to give appropriate credit, provide a link to the license, and indicate if changes were made. So it also says you must do so in any reasonable manner, but not in any way that suggests the licensor endorses you or your use. That's a whole lot of legalese in 2 sentences. So now you see why I will avoid using Creative Commons at all costs, but you may come to some sort of situation where a client wants you to use something under Creative Commons, so it's important to know the stuff. All right, no additional restrictions after that. And then it says no additional restrictions. So in other words, you cannot use some kind of encryption or something to restrict others from doing the same thing you did with the picture. And that's pretty much it for that one. And then we have the CC BY SA, which is close to being the same, but not quite. So again, we can copy and redistribute material. We can remix and transform material for any purpose, even commercially. We have to attribute. Then they have something called share alike. So if you were to use something under this license, and let's say you transform the photograph or graphic or whatever. You could only distribute it under the same conditions as the original, which would mean this license here. So you couldn't make it another license. So you couldn't say, for example, make it non-commercial. And then everything else pretty much applies the same. And then the one other we have left here, it's a CC BY ND, which actually you might find quite often. So you can copy and redistribute material in any medium. You have to attribute, but you have to use it as it is. You can't transform or alter that material. So I can see where this might be actually a fairly common one, where somebody has a photograph or whatever, and they just don't want people changing it up because they love the photograph so much and spent so much time, editing it or whatever. So that is what that one is. So I actually think you could see this one quite often. But that is pretty much it for the Creative Commons licenses. As I said, they all require attribution, which is the pain in the butt. So I myself avoid using them, but you be you. Now let's take a look at a couple of other issues here. Now, the thing is that each site gets to make its own rule. So the main three sites that a lot of us use for free pictures would be Pixabay, Pexels, and Unsplash. And so those are free sites, or they have free plus a pro level if you want to do that. So let's take a look at Pixabay. And I actually looked at all three sites, and they all have a license. And the license between Pixabay, Pexels, and Unsplash are fairly similar enough that we really only need to look at one. So if we come here, we'll go ahead and pick out a picture. Could be a video as well, but we're going to go with picture. Got here, we'll just pick out this one here. So you notice that right here it says free for use under the Pixabay content license. And if we click on that, it'll bring up the license. And this is a short form of it. There's a longer one if you want to look at it. We're not going to do that. So the first thing you need to understand about this is it's going to be broken down to what we can do and what we can't do. And so on Pixabay, we can use the content for free. We can use the content without having to attribute the author, although we're free to do that. And we can modify or adapt the content into a new work. So that's pretty good. That gives us pretty free hand. What we can't do, we can't take a picture off Pixabay and try to sell it somewhere else on a standalone basis. And that standalone basis means there's no alteration done to it in any significant way. If the content has trademarks or logos, we can't use that for commercial purposes in relation to anything made by the companies that have those trademarks or logos. You cannot use the content in any illegal or immoral way. Now that sounds like an awful slippery slope because we all have our own interpretation of immoral or illegal. But if it goes on and says, especially content features recognizable people. So in other words, you can't use a picture, do something weird with it and try to slander somebody in the picture. You can't use the content in a misleading or deceptive way. Yeah, that's one's kind of slippery too. And you cannot use the content as part of a trademark, design mark, trade name, business name, or service mark. So don't think you can cut out something out of one of these pictures and claim it as your trademark, because you can't. And that's pretty much it for the summary. So not too bad. And the fact that we don't have to attribute makes things a lot easier. Now, there's one other site I want to look at. It's a site I haven't been on forever, and you'll understand why in just a moment. And it's FreePic. Nothing wrong with FreePic, but I only had the free version. So let's go here. Let's look at icons. And we'll just do black outline ones. Doesn't matter. All right, let's pick out something. We'll just pick out this AI one here. Open it up. And here is, again, not necessarily Creative Commons, but attribution is required. Now, I think that with FreePick or one of these sites like it, that if you have the paid version, you don't have to do the attribution. But of course, here you can see also with the paid version, you can download an SVG, where with the free version, you only download a PNG. And so attribution required. Let's look at how to attribute this just real quick to see how bad it is. And you see we have this whole long article about how to attribute things depending on where you're going to use that icon. In other words, not a whole lot of fun. So be aware that a lot of these other sites, at least on the free version, will require you to attribute stuff. So again, just like the Creative Commons issue, you want to be aware of that because you may have to have some kind of link or some kind of text on your page to comply with that attribution requirement. And so that's why I recommend that you avoid attribution at all costs. It's a potential legal issue, and just trying to comply with it is just a big pain. That's really all I was going to get into tonight on this. I know it's kind of long and kind of dry, but it's kind of important stuff to know, and it's stuff you're going to come across sooner or later in your career as a funnel builder or a designer. My name is Tim Willis. I'm a certified ClickFunnels funnel builder. I make demonstration and tutorial videos on ClickFunnels, ClickDesign, other useful tools for funnel hackers and funnel hacking. That is the video for tonight. I'll talk to you later.